Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakajata Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanditanscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langhayate Viren Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagwan Ki Jai Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samaveta Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Jai Nitai Gaur Premanand. Hare Krishna. Let's continue discussing the 6th chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the conversation between Narada Muni and Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva had asked Narada Muni to narrate about his previous life, how he attained such an exalted position. Narada Muni, in his narration to Vyasadeva about his history, tells him about how his mother gave up her body after being bitten by a snake. And shortly after, Narada Muni, being equipped with the knowledge he attained from the Bhaktivedantas earlier, he started to travel all around the world. He visits different towns, cities, villages, forests, mines, so on and so forth. And finally he comes to a forest completely exhausted. He then takes bath in a stream of water, and after feeling rejuvenated, he sits in meditation. One lesson we can always learn from this particular episode is many times in Bhakti, when our authorities or our spiritual masters teach us something, the exact application of that knowledge may not be quite conceivable for us at that point. Nevertheless, we should put faith in the words of our teachers, of our Siksha Gurus, of our spiritual masters, and we should wholeheartedly learn. And whenever the situation arises, all that knowledge that we had accrued, we had gained under the instruction of the spiritual master will come to our aid. A classical example of this particular point is Arjuna. He was just yet another prince of the Kuru dynasty. He goes to learn from Dronacharya, and he passed out as his best pupil. But during his time in the ashram of Dronacharya, he gave completely 100% to the process which Dronacharya had asked all the students to follow. Even though the opportunity that was given to the Kuru princes are all the same, it was Arjuna who had taken advantage of the association of his spiritual master, who had given himself 100% to the process. He passed out as his best pupil. So sometimes our spiritual masters may give us an instruction, chant attentively. Sometimes the instruction may be read Srila Prabhupada's books. sometimes do some service. At any point, we have to take the instructions wholeheartedly, sincerely, and we have to simply follow that. Because our vision is very limited. Our area of vision is very, very limited. Only the spiritual master who is on a much higher state of consciousness will be able to tell us, will be able to foresee what will be useful for us. I recently shared a clipping of Srila Prabhupada in the WhatsApp group, where Prabhupada says, if you don't read, how can I help you? Your mind will be restless and you will go here and there. So in order to train our mind, we need to constantly focus. We need to constantly be engaged in the service of Krishna in the form of hearing, chanting, remembering Him, and doing whatever practical services we can. So here, when Narada was still a small boy, when he was serving the Bhaktivedantas, he wasn't sure. He was just a 5-year-old boy. He didn't go to Gurukul. He wasn't even educated in the true sense. But because he had the association of the Bhaktivedantas, he wholeheartedly followed them. And at the time of their leaving, they initiated him in mantra. And with full faith, he was able to chant. And when the situation arose, he also raised to the occasion. So, at the time when things are normal, that's the best time for us to train ourselves. That's the best time for us to focus and go deep in bhakti. So, when reverse situation comes, we'll be fully equipped to deal with it. In fact, for a devotee who has given to this process 100%, there is no reversal. Everything is favorable for the execution of bhakti, and the devotee will be able to deal with both the situations, good and bad, very easily. On the other hand, if we think, let this bad situation come, I will take shelter of Krishna at that point, because our mind is not trained with so much faith, our mind is actually not trained to take shelter of Krishna, it will struggle actually to come out of that situation. So it's very, very important that we learn this lesson from the life of Narada Muni. So he starts to go to different places, and finally he had arrived at this place and he sits in meditation, and soon after he started to meditate, Supreme Lord appeared within his heart, and then he vanished. When the Lord appeared in his heart, Narada Muni was very happy, and Narada boy was very happy, and he shares his own experience to his disciple, which is Vyasadeva, that at that point when he saw the Supreme Lord, each one of his different senses, they were fully enlivened, rejuvenated, and was completely blissful. Like every sense enjoyed the maximum pleasure. Now, the best way for us to enjoy pleasure in this material world is by giving pleasure to Krishna. If we don't focus on giving pleasure to Krishna and instead try to please our own senses, we may be practicing bhakti, but we'll never come to the pure platform. On the other hand, everything that we do, if we somehow or other cultivate this mood of giving pleasure to Krishna, even the so-called difficulties will become pleasurable for us. When we take up chanting, for example, if we think this is an austerity, definitely our mind will go down. We won't enjoy the process. Or thinking that, no, I won't treat it as an austerity, I will do it for my pleasure. Even in that instance, the happiness will evade us. The only way for us to enjoy happiness, even while doing japa, even doing sadhana, is to understand, by my chanting this Hare Krishna, Radha Gopinath will be pleased, and that's the only goal of my life. Simply to please Radha Gopinath by chanting their holy names. That's all we have to focus on. If we do this way, then our chanting will indeed please Sri Sri Radha Gopinath, and because they are pleased, we will automatically be pleased. This is one point we have to keep drilling in our mind until we are completely convinced, until we have molded our consciousness fully in favor of Krishna. Because this is something we are not introduced at all in our material education, nor did we learn by ourselves in our own life through our experiences. This is a revolutionary point, and this is the gift of the Shastras that has revealed to us what is the best way to, first of all, attain pleasure, attain bliss, and how to sustain it forever. The answer to both these questions, how to be happy and how to sustain that happiness throughout our lives, is by doing devotional service to please Krishna. Can be japa. When we take prasad, we don't need to eat prasad thinking that it's gonna be giving pleasure to my tongue. That aspect is there on the material level. But on a more deeper level, we can connect it with Krishna, understanding that let me try to taste the mercy, that let me try to taste what Krishna has enjoyed. That way, everything that we actually do in this life, if we focus on connecting it to the pleasure of Krishna, firstly and ultimately, Krishna will be pleased, and us feeling happy will naturally happen as a byproduct. This is the only way to attain happiness. Otherwise, if we practice bhakti with the sole aim of seeking pleasure through bhakti, bhakti will evade us. And this is one point which many of us, even practicing devotees, or maybe most of us, fail to understand, that the only way to enjoy Krishna consciousness is by doing our sadhana, seva, and everything that we do 24/7, connecting it to pleasure of Krishna, not to our pleasure. If we don't understand this point, then we will practice bhakti, but our experience won't be pleasurable, it won't be enjoyable. And we come across many instances, devotees who are even initiated, chanting 16 rounds, following 4 regulative principles and practicing sincerely. Even they go through depression. Even they go through difficulties. And they feel disturbed rather by the difficulties. Which means our bhakti is not deep enough to shelter us at all times. Our bhakti is not practiced in a proper mindset to please Krishna. And unless Krishna is pleased, our happiness will remain elusive. The difficulties will actually come to us, and from our mind, it will look magnified only. So we need to come out of this limited, narrow mentality, narrow mindset, that let me seek pleasure in Krishna consciousness. Let me just keep enjoying going to from one program to the other. Going from one program to the other is good, provided the mood is to genuinely seek the association of devotees, to genuinely please Krishna by doing whatever little service we can do. Otherwise, our whole life will be a chase game after happiness, and after some time it will be frustrating, because if we run after happiness even inside Krishna consciousness for some time, we'll start to get bored. And if you are not properly trained in Shastras, this pursuit of happiness will look exactly same as our past experience in pursuit of some material prosperity or material happiness. And soon we'll lose inspiration. So this is one lesson we can take from Narada Muni's history. So after he sees Krishna, he meditated simply because his spiritual masters have told him. He meditates, but as soon as he sees the Supreme Lord within his heart, he experienced bliss. Each one of his senses, they experienced bliss. And then the Lord vanishes. When Lord vanishes, Narada Muni now very frantically start to search. He tries to focus his mind. He immediately gets up. He is still trying to sit in meditation, focus, but no matter how much he tries, he couldn't see the Lord again. And it was then that the Supreme Lord, out of his causeless mercy, he starts to speak. And he tells to Narada Muni that he will never get his darshan again for the rest of his life. He appeared simply to increase the desire, increase the hankering for the Narada boy to go much more deep in bhakti. And the Lord says that one cannot see him if their service is incomplete and if they still have some materialistic desires. The Lord is saying one cannot see him if the service is incomplete. What to speak of, we do no services at all. Practically, there is no hope. Now, this is the answer to all people with atheistic mentality. And they say, show me God, then I'll actually believe. What is Lord saying here? Lord says here, one cannot see me without service. So even for the atheists to see him, they have to do some service. In fact, Lord is saying one who is incomplete in service cannot see me. So this question of atheists will always remain for perpetuity, that they'll never be able to see God. So they don't need to question the devotees, show me God. If there is God, show me. Well, if you don't do service, you cannot see God, as simple as that. It's the same rule even for devotees, as we can see here in Narada Muni's case. Those who do even incomplete service can't see him. What to speak of those who don't do service? So in Krishna consciousness, we need to come out of this mentality. From material life, we all have some bad experiences about being exploited, somebody trying to take undue advantage of our soft nature and try to get things done through us. And we feel we were used by people. That's in our material life. When we come to Krishna consciousness, we need to use our own discrimination to understand how we can put ourselves under. And then, after accepting an authority, first we need to fully trust the authority, and we have the full choice about who we should accept as our authority. But after we accept our authority, we should then take instructions from them and we should try to serve them. If we still come with the same mentality from our materialistic past, that the devotees are also around here to exploit me, then we are lost in Krishna consciousness. Because with that same mentality, if we approach bhakti and live our bhakti life, then there won't be much difference between our material life and the Krishna conscious life. On the other hand, if we fully give ourselves to this process and put ourselves under someone who we can trust 100%. Once Chaitanya Charan Prabhu was mentioning this point, that we should always have at least one devotee in our life who we can trust more than our mind. At least one devotee. So we have the choice of who we want to work under, somebody who we can 100% trust, and we go and put ourselves under them and then take guidance from them and we follow it. If we are not happy and satisfied with one person to work under, we can always go and seek some other devotee. But the point here is we should always be taking guidance from at least one other devotee. Somebody who can guide us all the time. So that will help us to come out of this materialistic mindset, to see doing work or doing service as a burden. And instead, we understand this is the only ticket that's going to purchase us a privilege of seeing the Supreme Lord face to face. If we don't come out of this mindset of being exploited by devotees, then it becomes very hard. Who will we do service under? What service can we possibly do? Who can we please by doing service? So it's very, very important that we understand this point about the only way to please Krishna is through devotional service. But how can we do devotional service? By putting ourselves under the instruction and guidance of one other senior devotee. But what if I get exploited by such a senior devotee? Then go and choose one person who you can trust 100% of the time. If you don't have one, then you ask your spiritual master who you should be under. So in this way, part of the process for us to see Krishna, to be with Krishna, to go back to the spiritual world is, in fact, the most important part is to do devotional service to Him. And even if we are incomplete in that service, Krishna is saying, you cannot see me. So these 2 points, Krishna says that those who are incomplete in their service or those who have material taints can't see me. Narada Muni then prays to the Supreme Lord, and Supreme Lord gives him more instructions. Satsevaya adirgayapi jata mai dridamati hitva vadyam imam lokam ganta majjana samasi. Supreme Lord says, the only way to come to me is Satsevaya, to do service to my devotees. Sat means devotees. Satsevaya adirgayapi, even for a few days if you actually do devotional service. Jata mai dridamati, you will get unflinching faith and determination in performing bhakti to me. By doing that, what do we gain further? Hitva avadyam imam lokam. We can easily give up this deplorable material world. Ganta majjanatamasi. And then you come to the spiritual world and become one of my majjanatam. Krishna is saying, become one of my dear associates. So this is what awaits us. If we simply do devotional service, the service will actually help us to give up this deplorable world, be fixed in the service to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, and eventually we can give this whole world and go back to spiritual world and become one of the associates of the Supreme Lord. Whatever we gain by doing devotional service cannot be separated by time, cannot be taken away from us by time, cannot be taken away from us by death even. Normally, if you see anyone who is skilled in any field, could be in business, finance, sports, singing, some pop singer, whatever skills they have, whatever money they make, fame they gain, time takes it away after some time. So everyone has a certain shelf life. The skill, their beauty, the voice, the appeal runs out after some time. Time takes everything away, even in this very life. The person in my life, I have actually seen, I'm 44 now, but in my childhood days, the sports celebrities were different. In my teenage days, they were different. And now, I'm in 40s, the celebrities, icons, they are different. Same way, rich people, different, they keep changing. Miss World, Mr. World, keep changing. Rich person, everything keeps changing. Celebrities, the best cricketers, best tennis sports stars, best soccer players, they keep changing. Time takes everything away from everyone, except from the devotees. That's what Krishna is saying here. Time cannot take the effect of bhakti away. Even death cannot take. Saying this, Krishna keeps quiet. He becomes silent. Narada Muni bows down to him, takes his instructions to his heart, and he starts to sing his glories. Namanyanantasya hatatra papatan guhyani badrani namani anantasya. The unlimited names of the Lord. Hatatra papatan. He starts to recite the unlimited names of the Lord. By doing that, he becomes completely immune to the Hatha Trapa, the anxieties and the pain of this material world. Guhyani, Badrani, Kritani, Chasmaran. This chanting of the holy name of the Lord is Badrani, very auspicious. So, he goes around singing the glories of the Lord. Gam Paryatam Stusta Mana. Gam Paryatams. He starts to, Gam is earth, Paryatam, he starts to travel. Tustamana Gataspriha. By traveling around and by singing the glories of the Lord, he becomes very blissful and he becomes immune to the effects of this material energy. Guhyani Badrani Kritani Chasmaran Gam Paryatam Stusta Mana Gataspriha. Kalam Pratikshan Vimado Vimatsaraha. By doing this, over a period of time, being humble from within his heart, Vimada. Mada means like madness. Vimada means one who is without that. Vimada, very humble. Vimatsaraha, non-envious. Nirmatsara. We read this in the very first chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto. So, Vimado Vimatsaraha. Namanyanantasya hata trapapatan guhyani badrani kritani chasmaran gam paryatam stusta mana gataspriha. Gam paryatam stusta mana gataspriha. Kalam pratikshan vimado vimatsaraha. So these two lines, last two lines, they mention about the qualities which he had. Gam paryatam stustamana. He was very pleased. Gataspriha. He gave up any kinds of pangs of this material world simply by traveling everywhere and glorifying him. So he takes this instruction as a Narada boy and then he travels everywhere. And then Narada Muni continues to narrate how he attained perfection through this process of traveling everywhere and singing about the glories of the Supreme Lord. He says that in this way, when he was traveling around and singing, time rolled by, he became old, and then at the time of his death, he gave up his body, and when Supreme Lord breathes in, Yashaika Nishvashita Kala Matavalambya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagadanda Nata. When Mahavishnu breathes out, unlimited universes come out of his bodily pores. That's during the Srishti, original creation. And then within each of the universe, Mahavishnu in turn enters as Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. And from the navel of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, a lotus appears, and in that lotus, Lord Brahma is born, Padmaja. And then along the stem of this lotus, there are 14 planetary systems that are lined up. This is how the description of creation is given. We'll touch to that briefly in 2 chapters before, but we'll continue to discuss that also later. So at the time of original creation, all these unlimited universes go out, and when Mahapralaya happens, at that time, all the universe goes into the body of Mahavishnu. But during the end of Lord Brahma's day also, there is a mini pralaya that happens within every universe. This Mahapralaya happens when Mahavishnu breathes in, that's at the end of the life of Lord Brahma. But at the night of Lord Brahma, everyone goes into the body of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. At that time, even Lord Brahma, so 1000 Chaturyugas, there are 4 yugas, Satya, Treta, Dwapara and Kali Yuga. Together, this Chaturyuga is known as Divya Yuga. There are 1000 Divya Yugas in a day of Lord Brahma and 1000 Divya Yugas in the night of Lord Brahma. So Lord Brahma is awake for 1000 Divya Yugas. That's like 12 hours of his day. And then when Brahma goes to sleep for the other 1000 cycles, during that time, Brahma doesn't sleep on top of the lotus. Instead, Brahma, along with everyone, goes into the body of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu within the universe. So for that 1000 yugas, everyone sleeps within the body. But at the end of the lifespan, all the universes, they go into the body of Mahavishnu. But at the night time of Lord Brahma, everyone within the universe, they go and sleep inside the body of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. So at that time, Brahma goes, Narada Muni says, when he was a small boy, when he grew up, that coincided with that time of Lord Brahma going to sleep. So everyone, including Lord Brahma as well as Narada boy, everyone, they entered into the body of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. And then they stayed there for 1000 Divya Yugas, which is 1000 times Chaturyuga. And then when Brahma awakes, at that time Brahma comes again reborn on top of the, not reborn, he is born already, he is inside, but then again he comes back to his position on the lotus. And at that time, Narada was born as one of the sons of Lord Brahma. This is the beauty of Bhakti. Narada boy's previous history is also given in the Puranas. He was a Gandharva by name Upabarhana. And in one satsanga, rather than glorifying Krishna through his kirtan, he was very much proud of his beauty, proud of his singing skills as a Gandharva, and he was singing praises of material beauty. Because of that, he gets cursed to be born as a Shudra. And that's how Narada boy was born. He was not Narada at that point. He was simply an ex-Gandharva who got cursed to be born as a Shudra. But then, while he was in that position as a Shudra, being born as the son of a maidservant, simply by his association with the Bhaktivedantas, he got something so much more greater than even being reinstated to the position of being a Gandharva. Being a Gandharva was just a lower level demigod. He lost that position, born as a Shudra, but from Shudra, he became a spiritual personality. He got liberated. This is what association of devotees can do. When I started practicing Krishna consciousness about 20 years ago, one disturbing thought I used to always have, especially in the beginning months, was, why didn't I start this process earlier in my life? I was about 24 at that time. If only I had started this bhakti process earlier in my life, I would have saved myself from so many troubles, and most importantly, I would have used my life in a much more meaningful manner, with much more deeper purpose. So I used to feel like that. And then even after some months also of practicing Krishna Bhakti also, once in a while that thought used to come. So one day I was staying outside. I hadn't joined the temple at that point. I visited the temple here in Sydney, and I was praying to Radha Gopinath. This thought is there. Sorry, I wasted my life. I should have come to you much earlier. And then I was sitting in the temple chanting, and at that time one realization Gopinath gave, that if I had to go through so many things, do so many mistakes, do so many useless things in my life, and finally come to Radha Gopinath, how can any of the things which I did in the past be totally wrong? If I had to do all of that to come to Radha Gopinath finally, then all glories to whatever I did. Yes, there were things which I did good, things which I did bad, things which I regret, but I have no need to lose sleep over it. And I had this understanding and realization, if I can use the word, that only Gopinath can make us think like that. Because once we come to him, once we attain his lotus feet, even our mistakes look auspicious. If I had to do all of that to come to Gopinath, I will do all of that again if I have to do to come to Gopinath one more time. Then I felt light. This experience actually gave me more conviction that no matter from whatever walks of life we come from, no matter what baggage we carry, no matter what difficulties we go through, once we come to Gopinath, he'll make everything auspicious. He'll, in fact, make you look back at your own mistakes and make you feel even sometimes good about it. Good that you learned to that point by doing that mistake. Good that you learned to this point by doing these mistakes. It's a learning experience. That's what Krishna can do to us. Any situation. And that doesn't stop right at that time. When we come from a karmi background to a devotee, now even in the life of being a devotee, if you look back in your journey within Krishna consciousness, there are many times you try something, things don't go your way, there are mistakes you do. It doesn't matter, we keep doing. What's the loss? Tyaktva swadharmam charanam bhujam harer bhajana pakva tapated tato yadi yatrakva vabhadram abud amusyakim kovartapto bhajatam swadharmataha. Narada Muni says, if somebody has practiced bhakti and along the process they slip down a little bit, what's the loss? On the other hand, one who has performed their materialistic duties so perfectly, what did they gain after all? Time is going to take everything away. So even somebody who is not a great success story, quote unquote, who is not 100% perfect in bhakti, they are still so much more glorious. Why? Because what they do is spiritual. What they do is eternal. What they do is their permanent asset. On the other hand, somebody who is very perfect and very successful materially, what do they gain? Tomorrow, nothing is going to be theirs. Which is better? Somebody who lives as a multi-billionaire just for today, or somebody who is a millionaire forever? It's like that. In bhakti, whatever that we do becomes a permanent asset. A billionaire even can be a billionaire today, but tomorrow if he or she is going to lose everything, then what's the use? On the other hand, somebody may be a millionaire and be lifelong millionaire, perpetually millionaire. Just a crude example, but that will teach us about this point about the perpetual effect of bhakti. So Narada Muni goes around, sings, goes into the body of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and when Brahma comes out after his slumber for 1000 Divya Yugas, Narada Muni or the Narada boy who was originally Upabarhana Gandharva, then Narada boy, now he becomes the eternal spaceman. Prabhupada used to say, Narada Muni is an eternal transcendental spaceman. Now he becomes the direct son of Lord Brahma. And now what does he do? Even in the previous life as a Narada boy, when he starts to sing the glories of Krishna. Namani anantasya atatrapa patan. Guhyani badrani kritani chasmaran. He remembers, he glorifies the unlimited glories of the Lord. He already had become immune to the pangs of material miseries. Gam paryatam stusta managata spriha. He has become self-satisfied. Kalam pratikshan vimado vimacharaha. He has already become an epitome of humility and non-envious nature in previous life itself. And then he goes into the body of Garbhadakshay Vishnu. Now when he comes out as the pure devotee, the transcendental spaceman. And he continues with this service. In material activity, people work very hard to become rich, to become millionaire or billionaire. What is so appealing about being a rich person? There's only one motive. I don't need to work. At least not in a burdensome way. If this is the proof that the activity itself is not pleasurable. We do an activity, we do work, materialistic people work very hard not to continue to work like that. They work very hard to give up work. On the other hand, we say Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. The purpose of studying Bhagavatam is to keep on reading Bhagavatam. The purpose of worshipping Krishna is to keep on worshipping Krishna. The purpose of chanting Hare Krishna is to keep on chanting Hare Krishna. The means and the end, they both are same. The journey is so pleasurable that it will never stop. We don't want it to stop. So Narada Muni, even in his previous life, he was singing the unlimited glories. After being born as the son of Brahma, Narada Muni says to Vyasadeva, Devadattam imam vinam swara brahma vibhushitam murchayitva harikatam gayamanas charamyaham Devadattam imam vinam. This datta means to give. Devadatta means that which is given by the Supreme Lord. What did the Supreme Lord give to Narada Muni? Devadattam imam vinam. He points at his veena. Normally in our childhood days, when we have our birthdays, we'll get some special gifts. Diwali, Christmas, Ramzan. Any special day, New Year, festival, event, you will get something. Or you give something also in charity. But Narada Muni also had received a very special gift. Devadattam imam vinam. He points out his veena, imam vinam, this veena which I carry. Who gave him? Supreme Lord has given him as gift. Can you imagine the quality of Narada Muni's service? It had pleased Krishna so much that Krishna himself is giving him, play this veena and sing for me. Devadattam imam vinam swara brahma vibhushitam. When I play this veena, then all the transcendental vibrations, they are decorated with Krishna Bhakti. Because the Veena itself is transcendental and it's being personally gifted to Narada Muni by Supreme Lord himself. When he plays it, Swara Brahma Vibhushitam, whatever vibration that comes out, they are decorated with, infused with Krishna Prema. Murchayitva Harikatam. Simply by playing this, the sound vibrations infused with so much of Krishna Bhakti. In that auspicious situation, Murchayitva Harikatam, he goes on singing Harikata, the glories of the Supreme Lord. Gayamanas Charamyaham. In this way I keep traveling. And then he further says, Pragayata Svaviryani Tirtha Pada Priyashravaha. I keep traveling. Svaviryani, speaking about the unlimited glories of the Supreme Lord. Pragayata Svaviryani Tirtha Pada Priyashravaha. Tirtha Pada means that Lord whose lotus feet is the abode of all the holy places. Pragayata Svaviryani Tirtha Pada Priyashravaha Ahuta Iva Me Shigram Darshanam Yati Chetasi. He says, in this way, using this Veena which is being gifted to me by Supreme Lord himself, I play that. Devadattam imam Veenam Swara Brahma Vibhushitam Murchayitva Harikatam Gayamanas Charamyaham. I travel around, I play this Veena, constantly singing about the glories of the Supreme Lord. Pragayata Svaviryani Tirtha Pada Priyashravaha, which is very pleasing. Priyashravaha means to hear, Priya means pleasing. Tirtha Pada Priyashravaha Ahuta Iva Me Shigram. By doing that, what happens? When I travel around singing about the glories of the Supreme Lord, which is very pleasing to hear, at that time, Supreme Lord himself appears within my heart. As soon as I actually start to sing. Darshanam Yati Chetasi. Ahuta Iva Me Shigram Darshanam Yati Chetasi. He says, as I travel around singing the glories of the Supreme Lord non-stop, the glories which are very pleasing to hear. Pragayata Svaviryani Tirtha Pada Priyashravaha Ahuta Iva Me Shigram. He at once appears. Shigram means immediately. Darshanam Yati Chetasi. That same Supreme Lord who, when Narada boy had originally sat down to meditate, who told him that he can see him only once in that life because his service is incomplete, as well as he has some material taints. Even though Narada boy didn't have any material desire, Supreme Lord says that to make Narada Muni more humble. That same Supreme Lord, after Narada Muni had attained perfection, he is saying, that same Supreme Lord who gave me darshan only once, now he appears immediately as soon as I start to sing. I'll read that verse fully. Pragayata Svaviryani Tirtha Pada Priyashravaha Ahuta Iva Me Shigram Darshanam Yati Chetasi. As soon as I actually sing Ahuta, as if he is called. Ahuta means, as soon as somebody is calling, how will we respond? If somebody calls out our name, we'll say like, yes. Ahuta Iva Me Shigram. He comes to me quickly. How quick? As if somebody had called him. And then what he does? Darshanam Yati Chetasi. He gives me darshan immediately. Can you imagine when you sit and chant japa and you say Hare Krishna, Krishna says yes. To make Krishna respond to us, we have to chant millions and millions and millions of names. Because our chanting is not pure. Now compare that with Narada Muni's chanting. This is the experience Narada Muni is going through. And Narada Muni is narrating his history to give us hope. That is how I started initially. I could see the Lord only once. In fact, prior to that, I haven't even seen the Lord. Then I associated with the devotees, did some service. And because of that, I attained a lot of Bhakti Mukha, Shukriti, lot of piety, not ordinary material piety, spiritual piety. That Shukriti I had attained, and then which was later confirmed by Supreme Lord Himself. And He said, Satsevaya adirgyapi, even a few days, if somebody had done, one immediately attains. Jata mai dridamati. One immediately becomes firm in my bhakti. Kitva avadyam imam lokam. One then gives up this material world. Gantama janatamasi. One comes back to me and become my associate. So Narada Muni is narrating his history. That's how I started. And then I served the Bhaktivedantas. I traveled, sat in meditation, saw the Supreme Lord only once. And after He gave me assurance, I started traveling everywhere. Namani anantasya hatatra papatan kuhyani batrani kritani chasmaran. So just traveling everywhere, singing about the glories of the Supreme Lord. And in what mindset? Gam paryatam stustamana gataspraha. With a very pleased, satisfied heart, I was traveling everywhere. Kalam pratikshan vimado vimatsaraha. With extreme humility and non-enviousness. These are the qualities. Being pleased, tustamana, vimada, humble, vimatsaraha, non-envious. These are the qualities we should try to cultivate. And it's only in this state of consciousness, when we do devotional service or when we do chanting of the holy name of the Lord or do any service for the Supreme Lord becomes pleased. If our mindset is not pleased, humble and non-envious, instead we become very proud of our service, we become envious of some other devotee doing something, then that service doesn't please the Supreme Lord. Externally, we may see something happening, but that doesn't necessarily have to please the Supreme Lord. So we have to be very careful when we do the service, our consciousness is proper. But we should not go to the other extreme, thinking, I'm not qualified, so I won't do anything. Then our bhakti, forget about being incomplete, it won't even start. So the balance here is, we need to understand the order of the Guru is, we need to spread Krishna consciousness everywhere, because everyone has to be happy. Everyone is child of God. But we are not qualified. Our only qualification is we have the order of the spiritual master. So accepting that sincere mood of service and gratitude, we should execute our service. And in the execution of service, if there are any gaps, Krishna will help us. But if we become very proud because we did some service and we received some result, we did some service and everyone glorifies us, then we will lose the focus, and unfortunately, whatever that we do won't please the Supreme Lord. Krishna is a person. It's not just enough to do something for Him. It's very much important to also do that, whatever little that we do, in a proper mood. Just like if a guest comes to a home, we can't tell them, making them feeling uncomfortable, that, you know what, I was actually on my way out to do something important and then you came, because of you I'm here. If we give that impression to them, they'll feel uncomfortable of being a burden in our life. Or if a guest comes to eat some prasad, we just keep it in front of them without any loving gesture. We just tell them, okay, eat soon and please leave soon. Then even though we may be doing something materially, it won't necessarily please the person. Same way, in our devotional service, we may do something. But if our mindset is not proper, if the quality of our consciousness is not proper, even though externally some things may manifest, But on a more deeper level, it may not please Krishna. So we have to be very, very careful when we read this section of Narada Muni's history, how Narada Muni did great things, but also, most importantly, in what mentality and mindset he did. Tushtamana, with a very pleased heart. Vimada, with humility. Vimatsaraha, with non-enviousness. So, Gayamanas Charamyahams, to continuously sing and just keep on going everywhere to spread the mercy. So, these are the lessons we can learn from the life of Narada Muni. And after he continues to do this, Narada Muni attained perfection in his next life when he was born as the son of Lord Brahma. And Narada Muni says, after having gone through his whole experience, first as Upabarhana, then as the small boy, as the son of a maidservant, and then as Narada Muni, until that point of having this conversation with Vyasadeva, Narada Muni says, based on his experience, there is only one way how we can be happy in this life. And what is it? Etadhi atura chittanam. There is only one way to come out of the anxieties of this material world. How? Matra sparshichaya muhu. All of us have some desires to enjoy senses in this material world. Etati atura chittanam matra sparsha ichchaya muhuhu. All of us go through a lot of anxieties in this material world by trying to enjoy our different senses. How can we come out of this anxiety? Bhava Sindhu, if you take all of this anxiety as a whole big ocean, we need a boat to cross this. Etadhi atura chittanam matra sparshichaya muhuhu bhava sindhu plavo drishto. There is only one boat I see. Drishto means this is how I see. I see only one boat. Bhava sindhu plava. Plava is boat. Bhava sindhu, the ocean of material existence. And what is that? Haricharyan varnanam. By constantly glorifying Haricharya, the activities of the Supreme Lord. And he says, Bhavasindhu Plava Drishto. Based on Drishta here refers to, I see here refers to my experience. So Narada Muni, with all his own practice and his bhakti experience, which he had actually gone through in his previous life until he became a Narada Muni. And Narada Muni was in extreme situation in his previous life. He was brought up by a single mother. She also died. He was barely 5-year-old boy. No other support. All he had was the knowledge and the bhakti that was initiated within his heart by those Bhaktivedantas. That's all he knew. But simply by following this instruction of the Supreme Lord as well as the devotees of the Supreme Lord, he is able to not only cross the ocean of material existence, but he himself became that boat for millions and trillions of countless souls. Every story you take in Shastra, there will be a connection to Narada Muni. How much he must be pleasing the Supreme Lord. So, Narada Muni, the greatest preacher in the entire Vedic scriptures, he is saying, this is my experience. And what is it? Etadhi atura chittanam matra sparshichaya muhuhu bhavasindhu plavo drishto haricharyanu varnanam. simply by Anuvarnanam means non-stop glorification, repeat loop. Simply by glorifying, reading, discussing, sharing this with other fallen souls who haven't come to Krishna consciousness yet, simply by doing all this, we can easily cross over. My experience is this is the only way. This is what Narada Muni is saying. Pavasindhu Plavadrishta. There is only one boat that can help us cross over, which is Haricharya Anuvarnanam, non-stop glorification of Haricharya, the activities of the Supreme Lord Hari. And after giving his concluding instruction to Vyasadeva, Narada Muni heads out on his perpetual mission to deliver Krishna consciousness to other fallen souls. And this chapter is concluded by Sutta Goswami by saying there are two reasons why Narada Muni keeps on glorifying the activities, name, fame, qualities, pastimes of the Supreme Lord. One is for his own pleasure, and second is to enliven all the fallen conditioned souls. Again, this is also a good lesson for us. When we practice bhakti, we can give out only what we have. Normally we use that as an excuse not to give out to others. I myself am very poor in Krishna consciousness, bad in Krishna consciousness. What do I have to give? Recognizing a problem is good, but using that problem as an excuse to remain dysfunctional is bad. I myself am poor. What can I give to other people? Good. That's a good problem, or that's a good outcome in terms of recognizing the problem. Now, what are we supposed to do? We should become rich in bhakti so we can give to others. Rather than using that as an excuse to become dysfunctional, we should roll up our sleeves and then go deep in our bhakti. We need to do attentive chanting, do hearing, do reading of Srila Prabhupada's books regularly. Regularly means every day. And share this Krishna Bhakti with others. In this way, we can be happy and we can also enliven others to become happy and blissful in their own lives. And by doing so, we become the dearest devotees of the Lord. Nacha tasman manusheshu kaschin me priya krittamaha bhavita nacha me tasmad anya priyataro bhuvi. There is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there be one more dear. Who's that dear person? One who shares this knowledge about Krishna Bhakti, knowledge of Bhagavad Gita with others. These are Krishna's very own words. These are Narada Muni's very own words. Somebody who's a master in his realization, his experience, and somebody who's the greatest preacher the world has ever seen, material world has ever seen, all the 14 planetary systems. He is saying, and Sutta Goswami says, he does the glorification of the Supreme Lord because by doing so, he himself is happy, and by doing so, he is making the whole world happy. So after giving his concluding instruction, Narada Muni moves on, and we'll see Vyasadeva, after taking this instruction from his guru, which is Narada Muni, would then proceed to write Srimad Bhagavatam. So this section, as well as another 10 verses in the next chapter, will answer the first of the second set of questions by the sages of Naimisharanya. They had asked Sutta Goswami the sages headed by Shaunaka Rishi had asked Sutta Goswami to tell about the background of Srimad Bhagavatam, to also tell the history of Parikshit Maharaj as well as the history of Shukadev Goswami. So Sutta Goswami is narrating this story of Narada Muni in relation to the appearance of Srimad Bhagavatam. If you remember, Vyasadeva was feeling despondent after having compiled all the other 17 Puranas, Mahabharata, Itihasa, divided the Vedas and entrusted it to his different disciples to propagate them. Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda and Atharva Veda. Rigveda he gives it to Paila Rishi, Yajurveda to Vaishampayana Rishi, Samaveda to Jaimini Rishi and Atharva Veda to Sumanta Muni or Angira Rishi. And the Itihasas, which is Mahabharat, he gives it to his disciple Romaharshana Rishi to propagate. Romaharshana's son is Ugrashrava Shuta, also known as Sutta Goswami, who is narrating all this. And then when he was going through despondent feelings, despite doing so much, it was then Narada Muni comes and he points out two shortcomings in his work. One is insufficient glorification of the Supreme Lord, and second is overemphasis of the four Purusharthas. And then he establishes the supremacy of Bhakti, and to give Vyasadeva more inspiration, he talks about his own history. And that's what we saw until this particular chapter, which is 6th chapter. And 7th chapter onwards, initial first 10 verses will be about Vyasadeva's determination after having heard the instructions of his guru, what he is going to do. And then from that point onwards, we'll see starting from 7th chapter all the way till almost towards end of the first canto, till like 19th chapter, we'll see about the background, birth and activities of Parikshit Maharaj. And finally, towards the end of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we'll also see Shukadev Goswami making his appearance in the scene. So this is the structure of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. We'll stop here. If you have any questions, you can ask. It is loading. Prabhuji, would you kindly elaborate what Krishna meant by incomplete service? Good question, Tony Prabhu. Normally, when we do service, there are different aspects to it. One is on a more physical level. I gave this example of a guest visiting our home. We welcome them, make them seated, but then they would also be reading our expressions. If we show an expression of, "Oh, you are here at a wrong time," even though you may serve them a nice plate of delicious prasad, they won't be pleased. On physical level, you are serving them, but on mental level, intellectual level, on a more deeper subtle level, you are not serving them. That means this service is incomplete. Complete service means Kayana Manasa Vacha, Deha Vak Buddhi. Our body, our subtle body, which is mind, intelligence, ego, our words, everything should be in line, and everything should be for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. Then, whatever service that we do becomes complete. For example, chanting. We may do mechanically chanting. That's one level. Or just our tongue alone is vibrating the name. Our ears are hearing something. Sometimes I observe devotees put headphones and sing or chant. Sometimes some lectures is going on and devotees hear the lecture and chant. So tongue is doing something, ears is doing something else. That's not complete chanting. But sometimes we may be chanting, but mind is thinking of something else. Material also, spiritual also. But it's still a distraction. Then service is incomplete. Complete service means when our tongue vibrates, ears attentively hear, and simply by doing that, our mind will, Prabhupada says, automatically thoughts of Krishna will come. We should not force it. Automatically it will come, but which means we should not endeavor to cultivate, to think about Krishna during the time of chanting. Prabhupada didn't encourage that at all. Prabhupada says chanting means there is only two senses. Tongue, ears, third one is sense of touch. Then this is complete. Now the same principle you can extend it to any other activity that we do. Let's say you do cooking. You may cook, but you can gossip with some other devotees. And you cook. And you can go offer it to Krishna and then come. Offering is incomplete. It's not cooked with love for Krishna. Or sometimes you cook, you made the food not so much in Sattva Guna, but Rajoguna and Tamoguna. Put too much spice because you like to take. No consideration about what's good for Krishna. That doesn't mean you have to cook bland. Krishna loves tasty food. But you can make it tasty and healthy. You can make it tasty, healthy, and cook it with proper consciousness. And then offer it to Krishna with love, not in a rush. And then give Krishna time. And as Krishna sits and eats, you come to our deity department, you will see when the bhoga offering is going on, the pujari who does the bhoga offering comes out of the altar, close the altar. He or she would then sit and chant Gayatri Mantra, meditating on Krishna and Srimati Radharani serving Krishna, and Gopinath is relishing each one of the items of the bhoga that's being offered to him. And then you will see sometimes his devotees also sit and sing Bhajaba Katava Chala Sri Gaura Hari, song that's written by Bhaktivedanta, beautiful song that lists out rather all the items which Krishna takes as part of his lunch. So in this way, everything is for the pleasure. Then that service is complete. Like this, we can extend this understanding to anything and everything that we do in Krishna consciousness. Complete means everything for the pleasure of Krishna. Every sense is for pleasure of Krishna, both gross and subtle. What if authorities are into groupism, favoritism? Therefore, against certain Guru Maharaj's desire for his disciple service engagement, shouldn't temple authority respect Gurudev's desires? Good question. Normally, the way how ISKCON works is because our spiritual masters don't stay in one place. They travel constantly. So, the system which is given by the GBCs, which all the ISKCON temples follow, is spiritual masters and the temple authorities, they work closely with each other. Because spiritual masters, they are constantly traveling. They always consult with the temple authorities to know more about the disciples. And they instruct the disciples also to work closely with the local temple authorities. So, likewise, temple authorities also understanding the mood. There is a need for the community, for the local community, which is being considered by the spiritual masters. And there is a mood of spiritual masters which is also considered by the temple authorities. So, working in tandem together,
the guidance is actually given to the disciples this way. If there is an situation whenever the disciple is actually not clear about what to do, the disciple can always, if they aren't directly in contact with the spiritual master on a regular basis, they can consult with the spiritual master directly, or if they are not in a position, they can consult with the local temple authorities, and temple authorities will in turn contact their spiritual masters, and then they will clarify also. Or sometimes it happens, depending on the situation, we may approach either local authorities or the spiritual masters, then they would consult with each other and they will give out suitable instruction. That's for the benefit of the disciple. So in this way, with mutual consultation, the mission of Srila Prabhupada can be taken forward. This is how ISKCON structure is actually laid out, because local temple authorities, they have their own area and they have their own priorities about what is actually needed for the temple. Likewise, visiting preachers, visiting sannyasis, visiting gurus also, they also travel to support the local temples, to encourage the disciples as well as to all the devotees. So in this way, cooperatively, everyone understanding their role. Disciple has a role to follow. Spiritual masters, they have a certain role. ISKCON temples, authorities, they have a certain role to perform. But everyone's role has to be working in tandem to push the movement forward, the way how Srila Prabhupada has given out the tenets for how ISKCON temples to operate. So that's how the instructions is there. Like in Narada Muni's case and Vyasadev's case, if we see, Narada Muni or Vyasadev has a question, immediately Narada Muni appears. Now in our case, it won't be like that. I have a question, my spiritual master may not appear here immediately. Then I have to go either here through Guru, or if I have in direct contact with Guru, I can contact him. Or if I have my local Siksha Gurus, I can contact. Or if I have to contact my local temple authorities, I can. In this way, collectively we grow. Ours is not a person-centric system. Prabhupada surface to do service quietly. How to utilize ambition in Bhakti? Good question. Normally we think if somebody asks us to, let's say, preach to 200 devotees, we may have desire to preach, but we also have a conflicting thought, isn't that self-aggrandizement if I show my enthusiasm to preach? So how to balance these two? To think I can do, or I can do best, or to think I can't do. Both are wrong. Both are on the platform of false ego. To think that only I can do best, that's on platform of false ego. To think that I cannot do at all, that's also on the platform of false ego. We need to give up both. proper balance there is, I will do whatever that is going to please Guru and Krishna. If Guru wants me to preach to as many people as possible, why 200? We should preach 2 million devotees. We should be aiming for 2 billion devotees even. But if the Guru wants me to go complete, which means physically we may do, we may get some results also, but that's not an indication for us pleasing Krishna. Pleasing Krishna we can know only by one way. Pleasing Krishna we can know only by one way. They'll say yes. Do we think our gurus will be pleased? They'll say yes. Do we think our gurus will be pleased if we go and tell that Gurudev, I want to work only with you. I don't like the local authority at all. Guru will have more reasons to worry about us, because Guru knows he or she is not with us all the time and may not be even forever. So that's not practical. So it's extension of the previous question. The point was that we tend to think like that, but it's the whole process is, or the system we follow is process-centric. So we should not think, I'm very humble, so I won't preach to less people, or I will preach only to less people, or I won't preach at all because I'm unqualified. Or to think, I'm the greatest singer here, only I should be singing for all great festivals, Abhisheks. Or I'm the greatest Mridanga player, only I should do also. Both service may be there, we may do, it is still service, but not complete. Not complete means it's not fully pleasing the Supreme Lord. It may actually cause some concern for Krishna also about us. So sometimes there is this misunderstanding. Some devotees in ISKCON, they preach online and they have millions of followers. And sometimes you will come across even devotees criticizing, saying, they are into self-aggrandizement. That's not self-aggrandizement. End justifies the means. Somehow or other, we have to spread Krishna consciousness. This somehow or other is there in the Shastras itself. Tena kena prakarena, ena kena prakarena. Somehow or other. Mana Krishna niveshaye, sarve vidya nisetyasyo, etayor eva kinkar. So simply by encouraging people to somehow start their bhakti, it is glorious. We don't need to also sit down and criticize even other spiritual organizations doing. Everyone is doing whatever that they can. So we don't need to pick fight in the name of preaching boldly, in the name of spreading pure Krishna bhakti. There's no need for fight at all, be it among devotees or be it even with other spiritual organizations. At the end of the day, even if some other spiritual organization, as long as they are doing something even in Sattva Guna, it's still worthy of praise. What's the problem there? But if somebody is misleading the people, that's a problem. There we have to see how we can give the pure message of Krishna Bhakti to them. But it also should not be done in a immature way. Rather, it should be, the message should be presented in a mature way so that it doesn't disturb people unnecessarily. Satyam, hitam, priyam chayet, it's given. Our speak has to be, or our speech has to be truthful, satyam, pleasing, and beneficial. So we should present the message in such a way so that it is very appealing to people. But that appealing, we don't need to put others down in the name of us presenting it. We can simply focus on, Prabhupada says, our books has got enough merit in it. We simply have to present the message. That's all we have to do. So we don't need to unnecessarily pick faults at others. We can simply focus on what is it that we find inspiring in the Shastras, and we can simply focus on that. No problem. A few weeks ago, I was speaking to a couple of boys. They were saying, one person is saying he will worship only Shiva, but he likes to come to ISKCON.
tell me an argument that I can use to defeat him. I said, you don't need to defeat here. What's there to defeat? I was a worshipper of Shiva. Shiva is our Kuladevata. Even now we worship. What's the problem? So we need to come out of this narrow mentality, and we need to work in a more open-minded, cooperative mindset, basically. Because the whole process here is what Prabhupada has told us is whatever that we do, add Krishna to it. If somebody is connected to Lord Shiva already, what's the problem? Shiva is the greatest devotee. Shiva's blessings is needed. We study even in Rudra Gita. It's there in Srimad Bhagavatam itself. Like that, we come across sometimes prematurely, we tend to take a very, or immaturely, we tend to take a very extreme stance. My Guru Maharaj says, we should never take extreme stance in anything. We should always take a moderate stance. Which means we should simply focus on positives. Somebody may not be fully practicing Krishna Bhakti, but they may still be doing something nice. They may still be following a sattvic lifestyle. That is worthy. Somebody may not be even following a sattvic. They may be non-vegetarians, but they may do some charity. That's still a worthy thing. Krishna says that in Bhagavad Gita itself, that acts of charity, penance, austerity should not be given up because they purify even great souls. So some form of charity is good. Some people may actually just plant trees, for example. Still worthy, why not? Everything belongs to Krishna. If somebody is doing something to take care, that's worthy to praise. We can praise them, but we also understand that ultimately everything somehow or other need to be connected to God, irrespective of what faith they actually follow. So in this way, we need to have a more broad-minded perspective and be a source of inspiration. Otherwise, in the name of bold preaching, you will come across devotees criticizing each other, or sometimes karmis criticizing devotees, devotees criticizing karmis. It just leads to a more toxic environment, an environment which is not conducive for bhakti. If we practice bhakti and if we don't enjoy, it says in the conversation that if we practice Krishna Bhakti, we'll be very happy. Prabhupada, what if we do
devotional service and we are not happy?
Then Prabhupada laughs
And he says, then that is not devotional service. Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam. It has to expand on our bliss, like that. Okay?
Thank you.
We'll stop here. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Samave